Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the complexity of AWS infrastructure? Don't worry, me too. The AWS CDK, or Cloud Development Kit, has the power to change that for you by transforming cloud development into a more intuitive and refined process. But while it's incredibly powerful, the CDK can be tricky to understand without proper guidance. In this video, I'll walk you through the best free resources that I've found to help you conquer the CDK learning curve and streamline your cloud development process. And stay tuned till the end because I have 4 tips to share with you that I wish I had known when I first started learning the CDK. Hi, if you're new around here, my name is Ryan. I'm an AWS certified solutions architect and developer, and my goal is to teach you modern serverless system design using AWS. Let's jump in. So this video was actually a request from a viewer, and let me first just start off by saying, I feel this. You are totally right. I definitely felt this way in the beginning when I was first starting learning. When it comes to CDK resources, outside of the official documentation, what does exist is largely outdated. And this is because the CDK was released in 2019. Not only does it have a dedicated team at AWS working on it, but it's also open source, meaning the community can contribute as well. And I honestly don't know why the CDK isn't more popular than it is, because in my opinion, it's not only the best way to build and manage your AWS infrastructure, but it's also the best way to understand how AWS works. This is because you don't come to AWS unless you've already been a developer for a while, and you probably already know one of the languages that the CDK is written in. So this video will attempt to compile all of the free resources that I know about into one place. All links will be down in the description. All right, so to start it off, we're on the official resources page for the AWS CDK. This should be your first stop when you're looking for some guidance. And I'll point out a few of the more important resources on this page. The first is the CDK Introductory Workshop. This is a great starting point for beginners, and it offers a step-by-step guide for setting up and building something with the CDK. Next, I'll scroll back up here and we'll point out the AWS CDK Developer Guide. This guide also provides a detailed introduction to the AWS CDK, and it covers the core concepts, installation, and basic usage. And here next to it, we have the API reference for the construct library. This is my personal favorite piece of documentation for the CDK. This serves as a comprehensive reference document that covers every single construct available in the CDK. Next, we'll jump down here into open source repositories, and we can go here to the example projects link. This will take us over to GitHub, and this is the official AWS CDK example GitHub repository. This is a collection of simple examples demonstrating the usage of the CDK in different scenarios. Jumping back to the resources page, there's a bunch of blogs, tutorials, a bunch of other things that you can explore on this page as well. Next, we're going to jump over into the construct hub. This hub is a comprehensive directory of CDK constructs shared by the community. This provides a lot of advanced use cases and custom implementations. The bottom line is, if you want to build it, somebody probably already has, and I bet you can find it on here. Next, we'll jump into the CDK patterns open source repository on GitHub. This is a collection of well-documented CDK use patterns that can help beginners understand common use cases and architectures. If we actually jump here into the serverless repository, we can actually see a ton of different use cases that have already been built here. Things like an S3 Angular website, React website, a CloudWatch dashboard, and a bunch of other really common use cases in AWS. Next, we'll jump here into Kevin Lin's OpenCDK repository. This repository is a little old, but there's actually some really good stuff on here. So if you scroll down here to tips and best practices, this has some really good information regarding file structures for your CDK projects, as well as just general information about CDK nomenclature. So now we're going to jump into some of the GitHub repositories of some of the contributors of the AWS CDK. Remember, the CDK is open source, so anybody can contribute to it. The first up is Rico Hermans. Rico Hermans is a contributor to the AWS CDK, and he has a lot of code snippets for using the CDK in different architectures. Up here in the search bar, you can just type CDK on every single one of these, and it'll filter all of the different CDK repositories that belong to each of these people. Next, we'll jump into Elad Ben Israel's page. Elad is actually one of the creators of the AWS CDK and actually worked at Amazon for quite some time. He's even written a book about the CDK, but since it's not free, I'm not going to include it here, but I will include a link to it down in the description. Next, Adam Ruka, who's a former member of the AWS CDK team, as well as a CDK open source contributor. Kaizen Conroy, who is on the CDK team, and Jonathan Goldwasser, another CDK contributor. Again, every single one of these people has repositories that show how to build specific architectures with the AWS CDK. Okay, next we're going to jump into some different blogs that I found useful. First up, we have the AWS DevTools blog, the AWS DevOps blog, and the AWS Cloud Operations blog. These are all official AWS blogs that go into great detail on how to build very specific architectures using the CDK. Next, I'll just mention some non-official blogs. Mikhail's has a whole series on building things things with the CDK. So does Philip Neenan. Rand the Builder is probably my favorite of these blogs. He really knows what he's doing, and he goes into great detail to explain how the CDK works and what's happening under the hood. Dakota Llewellyn has a lot of great CDK content as well. And finally, Ryan D'Souza. His content is a little bit older, but it still has some great stuff. Next, we'll jump over into some YouTube channels that I found super helpful. Of course, you can't talk about the CDK or anything AWS without mentioning Be a Better Dev. This is the best channel on YouTube for learning anything about the CDK or anything having to do with AWS in general. Daniel, who runs the channel, has worked at AWS for almost a decade. Next, Free Code Camp has a great introductory CDK tutorial. This is actually the first tutorial that I walked through when I was first learning. Next, we'll hop over here into Stack Overflow. Here we can just filter everything by any tags mentioning the AWS CDK. Stack Overflow is probably the second most used place that I go looking for code snippets. Again, anything that you could want to build, I guarantee that someone has already built it, and you can probably find it on Stack Overflow. There's one other AWS official resource called the Infrastructure as Code Generator. This was just released by AWS in the last year. This allows you to take existing CloudFormation stacks and then pull CDK code from it. I promise that I'm going to do a deep dive on this service at some point in the future. However, I will point out one of Be a Better Dev's videos where he goes into great detail about how it works. And I can't open it right now, but the next resource that I would mention is ChatGPT. ChatGPT has become a pretty big part of my development workflow. And I would be remiss to not point out that it can be absolutely incredible for generating code snippets, if you can accurately convey what you're trying to build. The AWS CDK actually has an official Slack channel, and this is the best place to go if you want to connect with real people. Who wants to do that though? And finally, the AWS subreddit and the AWS CDK Reddit. I saved these for last because Reddit is the place where dreams go to die. Of course, this is a place where you can engage with the community to share experiences, tips, tricks, anything like that. So now I'm going to share some tips with you that I wish that I had known when I first started learning the CDK. Number one, if you're unsure of which language to use, I strongly recommend using TypeScript. The typing system will really help you understand what's optional versus what's required, and will yell at you in the best way whenever you're doing something that won't work. Number two, pay attention to errors when you deploy things. The CDK has very specific and verbose error messages when something is going wrong, so it's usually pretty easy to understand what happened. Number three, start simple and deploy small things and test them. Then build and add complexity and deploy in pieces rather than all at once. This can really help you understand your architecture programmatically one piece at a time and how everything is working together. Number four, read CloudFormation templates. The CDK just compiles your code into CloudFormation templates under the hood, so having a baseline understanding of how they work will be tremendously helpful. This might sound boring, but I actually learned AWS almost entirely through reading and deploying CloudFormation templates before I even touched the CDK. So in conclusion, the resources exist if you know where to look. My primary motivation behind starting this channel was to actually be one of those resources, because I agree what does exist is few and far between sometimes, and you really have to look for it. And it took me a while to get the hang of it when I first started using it. So that's all for today. If you found value in this, please don't forget to like the video, and then please let me know down in the comments if there's any other videos that you want to see me make. Thank you for watching.